Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Kings Roundtable. Napes, Rhino, Jerry Reynolds. Very happy to have you. A very busy night in the association. The Kings back home after a 3-game trip, which was incredibly successful, going 2-1. They take on the Rockets tomorrow. The Rockets are in Denver tonight, taking on the Nuggets, and that is a great situation to be if you're Sacramento when you are getting a team that's in Denver the night before. So, a long travel evening. You do gain an hour. 3 home games coming up, guys, and I really think the Kings should go 3-0. I think with getting the Rockets on a second night of a back-to-back, they're in good shape. But let's go back in time and look at the last week. Jerry, obviously a tremendous week for the Kings as they finally lost the game. But, boy, since we talked last Wednesday, what a hell of a week.
Yeah, just a great week, no question about it. Anytime you can beat the Celtics, defending champions, and do it convincingly, as it turned out, obviously anytime you can go 2 out of 3 on the road, and certainly Milwaukee's an outstanding team, not a surprise to lose to them. Maybe how you played the first quarter would be questionable, but the other 3 quarters was pretty solid.
Jerry, with such a great week, what stands out to you the most about a big week?
Well, the team just seems to be playing more free and easy. Definitely getting better ball movement. It seems to me like overall the bench has been better. They were not against the Bucks. That was probably the deciding factor. But and I think with just really consistent minutes of Keon Ellis has made a real difference. If you could just point to one thing, I really would put it right there that he has made this team in his own role better. And then, of course, the addition of Carter is giving you another defender you didn't have. So I think those 2 things are probably more important than it might appear.
Do those 2 things influence what you may do if you're Monty McNair as it relates to DeAaron Fox?
Well, yeah, I think it could. I mean, obviously, if you really feel like you've got to improve and change the team, the most valuable asset will bring you the most valuable things back. I mean, that's always the way it's been. So I don't know their thinking, but I mean, you're not going to change the team much by say trading the 10th man or a second round pick. You're not, those aren't needle movers. So if your goal is to really make a run up the West, I think, you're going to have to trade somebody of value. And of course, Fox is the most valuable.
Jerry, we're more than a few weeks out from the trade deadline. In the last couple of years, it's been a strong feeling amongst fans that the Kings would make a move, and to no avail, there haven't been any big moves. What are your feelings going into this trade deadline?
Well, I think around the league, I think there'll be a few legitimate moves. I think with the Kings, it's I don't know, if in fact kind of what we think is true, that they'd like to move Herter or Lyles or something. Well, they're not going to get a big move out of that. I'm sorry. I wish they could. I know, on the little website of the Kings Herald things, many fans are always putting, Herter, Lyles, and a second round pick and getting, Cameron Johnson or John Collins. Well, that's not going to happen.
You spend way too much time on websites. That's your problem, Jerry.
Yeah, well, I get a kick out of it, and you learn something too. I mean, there are people that really have a pretty good feel of these things. So, but anyway, yeah, I guess my point is, unless you really are to go all in and make a big splash, you're going to have to put a name out there, a legit, and that.
Well, that's how the Kings got Sabonis. They had up-and-coming player that everyone knew was going to be arriving soon in Tyrese Halliburton, and packaged him with Buddy. And you got a guy that had already been a proven all-star.
Yeah, and that's how you got
better
Chris Webber for Mitch Richmond, a many-time all-star. That's how you got Mitch Richmond, a third pick, Billy Owens. A high so-called sure thing at the time. But that's what it takes. There are no exceptions that I know of.
Yeah.
So just a quick follow-up to that, Jerry. If we take Fox and Sabonis out of the equation, how do you rank in value the Kings' assets right now?
I would probably put Monk at third, and then probably Keegan fourth. DeRozan probably uh, would be fifth. Although I could see Keon Ellis to certain teams with his contract and his particular skill set. Might have a lot of interest to certain teams. Just
Yeah.
so. But that would just be kind of my view of it. I think,
All right.
So
Ryan, you've been really analyzing the numbers with Fox with a lineup, without Fox in a lineup, and the numbers are pretty staggering, aren't they?
Yeah, they knock you off your feet a little bit. We can throw those up really quick. These are your statistics for 5-man combinations right there. And the pluses and the minuses with the top 2 5-man combinations. One, the starting lineup that we have seen with Monk inserted, and then the other, the same starting lineup with Keon and no Fox. Those are compared to the season statistics. So the plus and the minuses. Now, you've only got a 101-minute sample size with DeRozan, Keon, Monk, Murray, and Sabonis, but the difference is there. There is a lot of difference there. And Jerry and Grant, I'll send this to you. The Kings have only won one game this year with an assist percentage under 50%, meaning the ball's got to move for them to play their best basketball.
Yeah, I think that's a key, and you kind of look for it all the time. And really, the style of play they have, which means you've got to make assisted baskets. I mean, certainly from Sabonis, that's what he really does, is get people involved. Now, a lot of times the low turnover rate or the low assist rates, simple, guys missing shots.
Sure.
I think sometimes we miss the obvious. You still have your 12 turnovers, but you'll have 20 assists because guys are missing open shots. And so, but that's still a key for this team. Make a reasonable percentage of your open shots, and you should have a good assist to turnover ratio.
I think the one thing the Kings need to do at the trade deadline is really solidify their bench. And I'm not saying that's going to be easy, but I think that's a real key here for the stretch drive.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the easiest route to go, without making a major move is I think there's guys they can probably get. I think the biggest thing is kind of identifying those people.
Sure.
Just like, for instance, I'll just throw out a name, Jalen Smith for the Bulls. He's a lively, young 6'10" guy that can run the floor, can block some shots, can shoot the three. Now he's playing off the bench in Chicago. Now he's better than Patrick Williams. I don't care what Billy Donovan says, but I mean he's outproducing him about double with the minutes, and it's like. But to me, it's not whether it's him or not, but it's finding guys like that are ready to take the next step. I think we've talked about over the years, the Bobby Portis's a few years ago was ready. Naz Reid. I mean, I think that's a real key, is finding a guy that you think, okay, well, it won't cost us all that much, and we think he's going to get better. Much like the free agent deal years ago of Scott Pollard, for instance.
Yep.
Finding a guy that was out there that you could feel was better than the league thought he was at that time, which worked out, or Bobby Jackson, who was kind of had bounced around, was kind of out there, and you got him, and just so happens, you were right. The franchise was right on him, but that, to me, that's the easiest, not the easiest, but that's the best way, because you don't have to give up major assets.
And one of those guys that some Kings fans had identified in Nick Richards out of Charlotte, he's reportedly on his way to Phoenix for Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks. So the Suns might be getting better at that center position, Jer.
Yeah, they're having their issues with Nurkic, which I think that ship has kind of sailed with him down there, because Mason Plumlee was kind of taking that spot anyway. So they're probably just deciding they're going to go with kind of athletic guys that can rebound and protect the basket and make stay out of the way of the scores.
Suns have been terribly disappointing this year. Checking in right now, a game under 500 at 19-20. Tomorrow it's the Houston Rockets, and the Rockets are one of those teams that I think are really surprising everyone. I expected them to be a lot better this year. They're last year's Oklahoma City. That's what the Houston Texans or the Houston Rockets are right now. They're last year's Oklahoma City, where we all thought that Oklahoma City would be a lot better last year, but we didn't think they would be as good as they were. I think it's the same thing with the Rockets. They check in at 26 wins, 12 losses. They won 4 in a row, and they're in Denver tonight. And so if you're Sacramento, you are really happy about that, okay? You want a team to be in Denver the night before they come to play you. So we'll see what happens. If you're a Kings fan, I'd like to see the Rockets win tonight. I would not want to see the Rockets after a loss, even though it's a back-to-back.
Boy, it's so true. I couldn't agree more. A nice win, big win on the road in Denver for the Rockets. It really makes it better for the Kings.
Yep.
What you don't want is Rockets to go in there and maybe get, slapped around a little bit. That'd be the worst, because it's a good team, and they'd be ready to roll the next night. But they're really good, but you are catching them on a back-to-back, and it's a tough back. So
Ryan, what do you think about that? And Ryan, what impact do you think Ime Udoka's made on the Rockets?
Tremendous. He's an authoritarian to a degree, has the players' attention, the young players' attention as well, and he has them playing defense. Their defense is incredible. Their fundamentals are on point. They're balanced. They've got 7 different players that average double digits, so not much more that you could ask for. Maybe a little bit of player control, gentlemen. Sometimes things run hot, but you take on the personality of your coach, and that's who he is, Jerry.
Yeah, that's who he is. And I mean, you see it, his personality as a team. I mean, and I think that's why they picked up the 2 veteran guys they did, hard-nosed guys, Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks, whether you like them or not, they to add to the young talent. And boy, they have some young talent with St. John and Amen Thompson, I think.
Yep.
I mean, I think that guy is he's an emerging star. He's one of those guys that maybe a couple of years might be an all-star level talent. And of course, Jalen Green, you just hope you get him on the nights when maybe he's sleepwalking a little bit, because but he's capable of putting 40 on you.
And then we don't know about Malik Monk yet for tomorrow. So, I mean, that's key. We saw what happened last night with the Bucks scoring 47. And I'm not saying that Monk would have won the game for Sacramento, but it just seems when you go back to last year and look at the Kings with Monk and without Monk, and you look at him this year in the games that he's missed and the games that he's played, it's such a significant impact on this team. I mean, I made a comment on the show at halftime during the Bucks game. I'm not saying Malik Monk is the Kings' best player, but you could make an argument he's as valuable as any player on the team.
Well, I think you could. I agree with you totally. I mean, he really is a difference maker. I mean, he's one of the guys that is capable of scoring 35, but he's also can get you 12 assists, and he's always going to bring energy. I think that's the thing. He's one of those guys that really has an impact with his teammates just through his personality. And so, he's very difficult to replace.
He's kind of 1-1 on this team, and a lot of fans point to the center position, the backup big. That's been the hole. I think the hole's at point guard, and you see Malik, who's not a natural point guard, but what he brings to the Kings, it takes things off of Domas's plate to be able to go back down low. Those two, the pick and roll, that changes the offensive approach and changes what you can do if you're Coach Christie, Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about with Monk, I mean, he makes Domas better. He gets him a couple, and Domas makes him better. I mean, they really are a nice combination. And but Monk is really important to this team, and like I say, we saw it as a bench player where he should have been 6th man of the year. But I always said my problem with that was much like a Keon Ellis. It's like he's too good to be playing 24 minutes. He should be playing. Whether you start him or not, he's one of your 3 or 4 best players, so he should be getting top
Jer-
3 or 4 minutes. I mean, get your best players on the floor as much as you can.
Jerry, let's help out let's teach basketball right now, because if I'm listening to the conversation that we've been having for months now, in a nutshell, talk about the pick and roll. Why is it that Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis are so much better in that one basic aspect of basketball than Fox and Sabonis? Because if I'm a casual fan and I'm sitting at home, I'm like, why would there be such a disparity with that?
I think it's simply this, that really Fox is really looking to score on the pick and roll, and basically, not that he won't pass it, but he's looking to score first. And then with Malik, he's looking to make a play first, score second. And it's the old Stockton Malone at the ultimate level, the pick and roll. The best that's ever done it. John Stockton was looking to make the play first. And of course, he could make it better than anybody, but he could also score. And so, I mean, Malik is not of that category playmaking, but that's the difference to me, that, and no discredit, I mean, to Fox, he's a scorer. He's looking to score first. And then, but that's why it doesn't work as well with Sabonis's offense.
And Jerry, I would add this as well. Sabonis sets some of the most bone-chilling hard screens that you can in the NBA. We saw one last night, and Malik Monk really knows how to set up his defender to come into that screen, and they rub shoulders if we're talking fundamentals. So in short, Malik Monk uses that advantage that you have with that screen from Sabonis.
Yeah, he's great at that. That's a great point, Rhino, because our screens, I always tell so often guards move before the screen is established, like they're trying to trick somebody. You want them to see the screen. You want your defender to see the screen.
That's
right. And so let the screen get set. And then and nobody sets any better screens than Sabonis. So, just like I say, and Monk is really good at that. He'll let the screen get set, then make his move, and let his defender then's got to make a choice. Do I try to get over this screen? Do I go under it? Do I get picked on it? Whatever. But then you read it, and then you read what he does. And so, those guys are. I mean, like I say, there's a lot of guards that don't handle that very well.
That's great points. I want to tell you about New Works Plumbing. They've got a fixed fee. They're available around the clock, 24/7. There's the information you need. Call, website. I like newworksplumbing.com, NEWWRXplumbing.com. And again, they are awesome. Plumbing needs and repairs. Make sure you check them out. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. Hey, don't forget about your weekend brunch at Bennett's, the West Side Grill, along with their locations in Sacramento and Roseville. We all love it. We go to lunch there whenever I'm in town. We love to meet at the Roseville location, but wherever you are, whether it's Sacramento or the West Side Grill in Rockland, Prime Seafood and Steak, go say hello to Brian and the staff. They'll be very happy to see you. You'll love the food. Again, Prime Seafood and Steak at Bennett's. Kings off tonight, taking on the Rockets. And, the one thing about this team, and I don't know if it's just this team, but East Coast road trip, first game back, sometimes you can get off to a sluggish start. I'm wondering if the game being on TNT and all the buzz that's going to be associated with that will kind of negate that a little bit.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, obviously, it's a great opportunity for both teams, but it's certainly the Kings. But I'm with you, Grant. I know we've talked about this so much, but boy, coming back from the East after a road trip, it's always a concern, and and not just with the Kings, but it's that way with every team that goes on a long road trip from East to West or West to East. The
only good news is it wasn't that long of a trip. It was only 3 games.
Yeah, that is the saving grace there for sure. But it should, the fact that the Rockets are playing tonight should more than make up for it.
Yes.
So
and as we all know, that back-to-back with Denver is not easy. I think it's the toughest back-to-back in the NBA. It's much more difficult, and the Kings will experience this coming up in a couple of days when you have to go from Sacramento to Denver, because Jerry, as we well know, by the time you get your bag and get in your room, it's 3 a.m. and you don't know what the hell's going on. And that is to me the toughest back-to-back in the NBA.
Yeah, and the other part that sometimes we forget, it's terrible travel-wise, but also from the player standpoint, they're playing in altitude without
Yes.
any real time to adjust. I
Yep.
can't think of a worse circumstance.
Well, it
that.
didn't affect
That's a
you,
great
Jerry.
point.
I noticed that when we were on the air, and especially during the scene set, when we were both standing on the court, I was always admired at your energy and altitude. I got to tell you, 5,200 feet was no problem for you.
Well, that's about the only way I can get high anyway. Is be high.
Oh my God. I don't even know what to say to that, Jerry. I really don't.
Oh my gosh. One of one right there.
Man, oh man. But that was true. The altitude was an issue. The travel was an issue. And so, but it's much worse when you go from west to Denver because you lose an hour as well. But the flight's about 20 minutes to 25 minutes to 30 minutes longer coming back to Sacramento in the winter just because of the jet stream and everything. So here's the bottom line. Sacramento tomorrow is in a great position. They beat the Rockets earlier in the year. They are going to be playing a team that in all likelihood will be a little fatigued. They're good, but I like the Kings situation tomorrow. What about the impact of not impact? What about these 3 games with, Golden State on the calendar, Washington? To me, you should go 3-0 on this trip because on this homestand. I really believe that. And I know that every time I say that, I end up biting my tongue and regretting it. But you should not lose to Washington and you should not lose to Golden State with how badly they're playing. So tomorrow, if you beat the Rockets, you should be able to run the table here.
I agree with that. I mean, I really, as good as the Rockets are, and I think right now the Rockets are a better team than the Kings.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But you're catching them right. We've talked about this often. The schedule will lose you games, and sometimes it'll win you games. And certainly,
Yes.
had some games with teams that were just decimated due to injuries or whatever. And so, but that's the way it works for everybody. So so you are catching the Rockets right, and you're hoping not only can you beat them, but by the end of the season you make progress. Maybe you can be as good as the Rockets, but the reality is they're not right now. But I agree. I think they should go 3-0. I really do.
When you're Şengün and you have to go Jokic to Sabonis, it better be a big Sabonis night. He better be a big part of the game plan. And quite frankly, I think this team has to go 3-0 because you look at the schedule after that. Oh boy, it's getting real tough.
Yep.
Well, the Rockets too. I don't know just who might be missing. I know Jabari Smith was missing a game, but I mean their wings are so athletic and long, and they got depth there. It really is a concern. But the point on Şengün is to me he's like quite honestly, he may be as good as Sabonis someday, but he's the young kind of emerging version of Sabonis. He's not as physical, but he's got the same level of skill for his age.
For sure. He's got a lot of fight in him too. So, Jabari Smith is listed as out. I'm hearing Tari.
He's got a broken hand.
Yeah. I'm hearing Tari Eason is probably going to be out, but he's a game time decision. And then obviously Monk, questionable game time decision.
Yeah, Eason is doubtful for tonight. Don't know about tomorrow, but if you're doubtful for tonight, you're probably doubtful for tomorrow night. But the Jabari Smith, I think it was about a week ago, he broke his hand, right?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
And it was in shoot around. It wasn't he broke his hand in shoot around.
Wow.
Did not know that.
Well, so he's not playing. I want to get to this. Impressed by Devin Carter's defense and rebounding, but concerned with his jumper. Hopefully, it's just rust he's shaking off. Jerry, it's kind of an unorthodox looking shot. We talk about arc on a shot and everything else. I don't know if there's enough of a sample size for you to comment on a shot and what you see.
Yeah, it's unorthodox, and I mean, I know in college, that was some of the concerns with some of the scouts, but he made it. I always go back to this. I mean, and the point is really accurate on my mind about what was pointed out, defense and rebounding. He's really excellent. I think the sample size is good enough for us to see he's legitimate in those areas already. I think the shot, we need more of a sample size, but it's a little bit like the Kenny Smith situation of decades ago. Kenny had a goofy looking rotation on the ball.
He sure did.
And I always remember Bill Russell time I was working with Bill, and he would say, Kenny, don't shoot anything past 15 feet, because he didn't think he can make it, and I kept telling Bill, I said, yeah, it looks funny, but it goes in. See that?
It had a side rotation. The rotation on
but he did it the same every time. He was consistent with his stroke, and of course he had a lot of success in Houston shooting the deep ball. But so I think sometimes, hey, if it goes in, it doesn't have to look good, but if it's a consistent stroke, you're not changing your pattern, then it's okay. I mean, that's kind of like in golf, where people would say, well, Jim Furyk can't win because he's got that strange stroke. You know? Well, he did it the same every time, and it worked out pretty good for him.
You would never teach a Lee Trevino golf swing to anybody, but it worked pretty good for him.
Right. Yeah.
And you should still never teach a Charles Barkley range swing to anybody. That talk started with Hallie too, and Hallie started knocking down his shots. As we get a bigger sample size, I'm not so sure if it's going to be as much about the arc, Jerry, as it's going to be the release. It looks like Devon's kind of speeding it up, and it's not already a quick release.
Yeah, he kind of brings it to his shoulder. Kind of reminds me of, as when you're a kid and you're not strong enough to play outside and you develop bad habits. So it's a little bit of a hitch to his shot. The arch doesn't concern me at all. But your point about Hallie is a great one. In other words, he could shoot, but you didn't know if he could get his shot off well enough. It was a very slow delivery. And obviously he speeded that up. So, generally, I'd be surprised if he doesn't is not a good shooter. I think it's a process. It really comes down to working at it. I think the technique is such that it just has to speed it up a little.
Well, between his last year in college and the summer before that, he improved his percentage from beyond the arc almost 10%. So I think that speaks even more to how it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and again, we have to understand the guy did not have any action all summer. He didn't have a training camp. He didn't do anything in the fall months because he was rehabbing. So he's really just starting off right now. I think we have to keep that in mind, Jerry.
Yeah, and how much shooting could he do with a bad shoulder?
Exactly.
I think it's remarkable how well he's played and looked in all phases, considering everything. He's looked better than I'd hoped for, and I really had hoped that he'd be a factor for this team, which he is.
I want to tell you about Sunrise Landing, the newest residential community in Colusa from Blazona Development, and you can get all the information by going to ColusaSunrise.com. Check out their various models. Remember, there's no Mellorews, there's no homeowners, right? And it's adjacent to the Colusa Golf and Country Club, so you got a great location, and you also have easy access. I-5, Highway 45, Highway 20. Just check everything out by going to ColusaSunrise.com. You'll get all the information you need on Sunrise Landing. Once again, that is ColusaSunrise.com. Don't forget, tomorrow, busy day. Ryan's got the Kings Court. We've got the pregame. We've got halftime. We've got the postgame. We got you covered tomorrow as the Kings take on the Houston Rockets.
Wire to wire. Join us. We'll be taking your calls, Kings Court, and definitely after the game. Jerry, you can come on. You can call in. We'd love to have you, buddy.
I might call in and complain at you guys about something. I've been thinking about doing
We'd
that.
appreciate that, actually. It'd make us feel good.
make you feel at home if I bitched at you a little bit.
That's right.
Yes.
Boy, what a night in the NBA. You've got shocking news. Joel Embiid's not playing tonight against the Knicks, and it's already 23-13 New York. Boston is at Toronto, Hawks, Bulls. Now let's get to the games in the West, all right? The Mavericks are in New Orleans. By the way, the Pelicans are starting to come around because they're getting their guys back. No Brandon Ingram yet, but everyone else is playing. Keep that in mind.
Hey, by the way, though, Graham, Zion's out for rest tonight.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. I
Yeah,
really don't.
yeah,
I don't know what to say. See, to me, that's what's wrong with the NBA. No, honestly, that right there is what's wrong with the NBA. There's no other way to say it. That's what's wrong with the NBA. Grizzlies are in San Antonio to take on the Spurs. I think that's a very intriguing game. We've talked about the Rockets and Nuggets in Denver. The Jazz host the Hornets. The struggling Warriors are in Minnesota to take on the Timberwolves. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team. You got Miami and LA to take on the Lakers, and the Nets are in the Clippers. But I want to get back to Zion Williamson for a minute. That I can't imagine trying to navigate a roster when you have a Joel Embiid on it, who is as talented as they come. Let's just call it the way it is. You could make the same argument for Zion Williamson. I mean, you saw what he did last year when he was healthy. I mean, he dominated. But you just can't count on these guys. How can you run a basketball team? How can you be a general manager? And Jerry, you know this because you've done everything, and be a coach when you can't count on a guy. You don't know if he's going to be available night to night. I don't know how you can coach like that.
Well, I don't either. You can't really. I mean, we've always said availability is a big part of the whole process, and certainly with the Pelicans, look at their record. Well, it's not because of talent; it's because of talent available. But when your so-called top two players, which they're not really the top two anymore, Troy Murphy is probably better than Ingram, but Ingram and Zion almost are never available.
They're never available. No, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I love about Sabonis. If you're the coach, you can count on him every night. It was like Harrison Barnes. You didn't have to worry about whether Harrison Barnes was going to play or not. You knew he was going to play. And, with Sabonis, not only do you know he's going to play, on almost every night he's going to give you the same numbers. I mean, that is such a luxury when you're a coach, Jerry. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a one of one almost in that regard for big players, not only available all the time, but he plays every play.
Otis Thorpe was like that when you coached.
Yeah, he wasn't quite to the level of Sabonis, but he was always.
No, but I mean, you could count on him every game.
You could count on him. If you got him, trotted him out there 35 minutes, he'd give you 18 and 10. And absolutely, yeah. There's not enough guys like that anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I think this is where the generations are kind of changing and the sports science is coming into things. I think if you're a coach in the NBA now, you have to understand there's going to be an intersection. They're putting trackers on these guys in practice. They know when they're hitting their max put out, their max speeds, and they've calculated it individually to understand what each person's body needs to get their optimal performance.
And I think it's the worst thing that's happened to the league. I really mean that. I think that is, and you, Ryan, I'm glad you brought that out because a lot of fans are not aware of the intricacies that go on and the things that are attached to their bodies. And it's mind-boggling to see all the equipment and everything. And to me, it's gone way overboard. And I know that I'm an older generation, and Jerry, you probably feel the same way I do. Put the sneakers on, go out and play the freaking game. I don't know why all of a sudden it's such an issue when Jerry coached and Jerry was coming up through the league, and we talk about, the Birds and the McHales and the Magics, and we can go on and on and on. Willis Reed, if you would even want to go back there, Wes Unseld, all these guys. Why was it never an issue then without the really good sneakers? All right. Without all of the training, without all the travel, flying commercial, why was it really not a problem then? And all of a sudden now it's like the new win thing, and you got to monitor everybody, and you can't play this many minutes, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. To me, it's one of the biggest problems with the league. And I think load management, not having Embiid playing tonight, not having Zion Williamson play, and we go on and on, has turned a lot of fans off. And I think that's partly why the ratings are so down in the NBA.
Well, yeah, ratings, so much of it is based on, let's face it, if you're not a fan of a certain team, you're looking for certain players, star players. And when they're not available, well, the game isn't as interesting to an average fan. I mean, I like watching Luka Doncic. Well, he's hurt, but he's not available. So now I really don't watch the Mavericks as much.
Sure. But at least he's got a legitimate injury. He's got a
legitimate injury, and I know I'm not totally disagreeing, Ryan. I know you're more in tune with the reality than me. Sometimes though, I think sometimes to get the optimum performance is you yell and say, "Run, you blankety blank."
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Jerry.
Get your lazy ass out there and hustle.
I don't disagree with you.
I mean, because I know as a growing up, or probably everybody that watches sports they've been through it. It's like sometimes, yeah, that will kind of motivate you to get to your optimum level.
Well, Jerry, it also takes you to a different level. Sometimes you need that person to push you past a certain point that you've never been and do something that you didn't know you could do.
Bill Wennington told me a story once that Michael Jordan, before the game, walked back into the shower and bathroom area and saw that Tony Kukoc was in the shower and goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm not playing tonight." He goes, "What do you mean you're not playing tonight?" "Yeah, my thing's bothering me." He goes, "You're playing. Get your ass out of the shower, get dressed, you're playing." You're playing. And Bill said Tony ended up having over 20 points that night and was instrumental in the Bulls winning. Sometimes you need that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a big part that's been lost, is you mentioned guys like that. I mean, I know even before I was in the league, that was kind of the thing is guys felt an obligation to play every game they could play,
Karl Malone never missed games. John Stockton never missed games. Did anybody play the game more physical and rougher and harder than Karl Malone?
No, I've seen Karl play on an ankle that I'd been in bed for three weeks, swollen.
And you know what Jerry Sloan used to tell us, Jerry? They practiced every day too.
Yeah.
They didn't take days off.
Yeah. Well, Stockton had a meniscus surgery, and missed 10 days.
Right. But they not only played every game, they practiced every game.
Oh, it's different. It's different.
But the problem is if Karl Malone was in the league today, like Shaq or these other, they would all be coddled and they'd be dealing with the science that Ryan referred to. And then in their mind, they'd be thinking differently and they'd be like, it's gone overboard. It's like, it's too much.
Well, it starts when they're 14, 15, the AAU.
Yeah, great point.
Those guys that say the Jordans, and I mean, that was kind of where it sort of started, but didn't start with him. But I mean, guys weren't, they didn't have that access to all that stuff. The high school coach.
The same thing in baseball
programs. Yeah, they were the most important thing. And now it's, really kind of a AAU kind of thing. So it's it's still a great game.
And you know what? It's not going back to the way it used to be. So we have to get used to this. This is just the way it is.
Well, really quick question, because I think this is topical and I want to hear your guys' response to this. Excuse me. It's been reported the guys are not practicing as much under Doug Christie. Jerry Grant, does that make a difference?
Doug, I've talked to Doug about this a lot, and I've talked with a lot of the other Kings, Scott Pollard being probably the one most. Rick didn't practice that much when he knew what he had. He had a veteran team, and he knew you didn't need a lot of practice. And he actually called off a lot of shoot-arounds towards the end of the year. Rick was, Jerry, I hate to use the term player's coach, but that's what he was. Sure. He gave the guys a lot of leeway and expected them to be ready to go when the ball was thrown up at 7 or 7:30. But he didn't practice a lot, especially towards the back half of the year.
No, he didn't. And, and he basically would, his idea was to have him fresh and ready for games. I always go back to a coach I really admired a lot and got to know, Dean Smith at North Carolina. And he made a point, that he would have shorter, once the season started, he would have shorter practices. But he'd say, he'd have a shorter practice, but we'll have a point of emphasis. We may only practice an hour, but we're going to practice on one thing. We're going to get better at this. And so, and have a focus that way without having the long drawn out kind of a harder practice. And I've always thought that made a lot of sense.
Sure does.
Today we're going to work on this part of our offense or this part of our defense. Everybody's going to focus on it, and then we'll be out of here. You do a good job.
Hey, I want to tell you that tomorrow on the postgame show, I will have a rant with Grant brought to you by EDH Motors. Go to edhmotors.com. EDH Motors Automotive Reimagined. David and Adam, just two guys trying to do something different and better, a long overdue concept. Go to edhmotors.com, check out what they can offer you. And if you don't see what you're looking for, no problem. David and Adam have decades of experience in the automotive industry. They will get exactly what you are looking for. Go to edhmotors.com, check out EDH Motors Automotive Reimagined in the El Dorado Hills Town Center. You'll take delivery at their beautiful auto lounge. You don't ever have to go to a dealership. It's awesome. edhmotors.com. Again, tomorrow I will be looking for a rant with Grant. What do you think, guys? You want a triple overtime game tonight in Denver? Would that be good for you, Jerry?
Yeah, that's exactly. I'd even settle for double overtime. But yeah, and be honest with you, I feel kind of guilty saying this, but I wouldn't mind a couple of maybe a little strained calves or something. maybe need 2 days off. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe a scuffle and a couple guys leave the bench.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
It's on them. So
Yeah. Well, we look forward. Go ahead, Rhino.
Denver played last night too, so
Yes.
Hopefully that evens the playing field to a degree, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, the Kings tomorrow, TNT, nationally televised game, and it should be a lot of fun. And don't forget, Rhino, it's 1 o'clock tomorrow, right? The Kings Court?
Yes, sir. Right here.
And then we get all the Kings coverage with the pregame, halftime, and postgame. Jerry, going to be a fun game tomorrow. National television. We'll see how the Kings respond.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it, obviously. And coming off the loss, see how they react. And go back to your point. They need all three. So
Yes.
This is the best team they play. Be ready and bring it home. The fans deserve it.
They sure do deserve it. You are absolutely correct. Everyone else, thank you, Rhino. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to 1 o'clock tomorrow. The Kings Court with Rhino. That's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you very much. Lots of games on tonight. Pick one out. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.